The car chase incident. In 2002, during the filming of a high speed action scene, a stuntman prepared for a sequence that was supposed to look effortless on screen. The setup was meant to dazzle. He would parasail down a line, swoop cleanly over a bridge, and land on target while the cameras captured every second. On paper, it was just another daring stunt, but reality didn't follow the script. As the crew looked on, the approach came in too fast. Instead of clearing the bridge, his body slammed directly into the concrete at highway speed. The impact was so sudden that for a split second, some thought it was just part of the show. But after realizing that it wasn't, well, let's just say cameras captured something nobody wanted to see. And let's be real, no one's clapping for a stunt when the performer doesn't get up. Medics rushed to his side, but there was nothing left to do. The man who was meant to make the hero look untouchable had died instantly. His last stunt burned forever into the film reels. A scene that was supposed to thrill audiences had instead captured the exact moment of a performer paying the ultimate price. The high fall incident. This next situation takes place in 1986 on a lonely stretch of highway in Arizona. To the crew, it was just another blistering afternoon shoot. The sun was beating down, the asphalt shimmered like glass, and the desert around them buzzed with heat. Engines roared, tires screeched, and the cameras were lined up to capture a motorcycle chase that was supposed to look wild but controlled. Everyone figured it would be routine, just another day of stunts, smoke, and adrenaline. But, as it often does, things went nuts in a split second and no one saw it coming. One of the stuntmen, a veteran specialist famous for his high falls and ridiculous leaps, tore through the scene on his bike. He'd pulled off skyscraper drops, helicopter jumps, and free falls that made audiences gasp, so the setup today should have been easy by comparison. But as the motorcycle skidded slightly offline, the routine snapped apart. Instead of keeping to the road, the bike carried him straight into a cliff face. The impact was instant, violent, and final. His body was crushed before he even had a chance to react. For the people watching, the shock was hard to process. They'd seen him defy gravity more times than they could count, walking away from things no normal person should have survived. And yet, here he was, gone. Not from some towering stunt or elaborate setup, but from what should have been the simplest ride of his career. The desert was left quiet, except for the grim realization that this would be the last fall he'd ever take. The Western Incident. Out in California during the 1940s, a war film was being staged, complete with hundreds of extras, cavalry charges, clouds of smoke, and clashing steel. It was the kind of set where even the background actors looked like they'd stepped straight out of history. But for one man, just playing soldier wasn't enough. While the others swung lightweight props, he decided realism meant bringing a real cavalry sword to the field. When the cameras rolled, he galloped forward with the rest, his horse kicking up dust in the staged battlefield. But in an instant, everything went wrong. The horse reared violently, throwing him from the saddle, and instead of crashing harmlessly into dirt like countless stunt riders before him, he came down directly on the weapon he insisted on carrying. So yes, he achieved what he wanted, authenticity. Just maybe not the kind that keeps you around for the rap party. If he'd stuck with the rubber sword like everyone else, he would have been brushing sand off his costume and heading to lunch. Instead, he became the first and last man on set to prove that method acting can kill you. The crew froze, unable to process what they'd seen. The battle around them was staged, but the blood wasn't. The motorcycle incident. Because apparently flying through downtown traffic at top speed without a helmet might just end well, a female stunt rider way back in 2017 was called in for a superhero movie, stepping into her very first big film job. The sequence looked routine on paper, which is basically a motorcycle weaving through city streets, cutting sharp turns, making it all look clean and effortless on screen. It was the kind of stunt audiences barely think about, but the performer behind the handlebars has no room for error. As the cameras rolled, she accelerated into the shot, leaned into the curve, and then lost it. The bike skidded, the tires failed to hold, and instead of straightening out, momentum carried her across the pavement and onto the sidewalk. In an instant, the machine launched forward like a missile, slamming her directly into the side of a building. There was no dramatic pause, no window for survival. Without protective gear, the impact was catastrophic. The crew rushed in, but the scene was already beyond saving. What should have been another take in the can had turned into the end of her life in front of dozens of horrified witnesses. The set fell silent. Actors who were used to resetting between explosions and fight sequences now stood in shock, realizing there was no reset for this. Production shut down immediately, but for the people who were there, no amount of time or edits could erase what they had just seen. On screen, the final cut of that chase scene looks seamless, fast, and exciting, exactly what audiences expect from a blockbuster. Off screen, it's remembered for something else entirely. The day a rider chasing her first big break never got the chance to take another. The helicopter crash. In 1982, during the filming of a movie sequence, a helicopter was brought in to hover low over a swampy set while massive explosions went off around it. The scene was meant to look chaotic and terrifying on screen, but off camera, things were even worse. On the ground, a man was carrying two children through the stage in chaos, running beneath the aircraft as the pyrotechnics erupted all around them. It should have been a moment of movie spectacle, carefully rehearsed and safe. Instead, the explosions went off too close to the helicopter, rattling it in midair. The pilot lost control. Within seconds, the aircraft spun down, slamming into the actors below. All three people were killed instantly, their deaths captured on film in one of the darkest accidents the industry has ever seen. The stunt had crossed the line from controlled danger to outright disaster, and the entire production was thrown into chaos. The aftermath dragged on for years. Lawsuits piled up, criminal charges were filed, and the story dominated headlines as the public realized how recklessly the scene had been staged. Hollywood had to face uncomfortable questions about its safety standards, especially when children were involved. From then on, stunt work and pyrotechnics were put under a harsher spotlight. But the legacy of the crash has never gone away. That movie is remembered for the fact that it became the stage for a tragedy no one should have allowed to have happened in the first place. And really, if you ever wanted to know how far filmmakers will go for a shot, well, blowing up a helicopter over children pretty much answers that. The chopper blade incident. This one happened during a helicopter stunt. The setup had cameras rolling, crew standing by, and a performer tethered dangerously close to the spinning aircraft. But one wrong movement, one slip in the choreography, and the performer was dragged directly into the rotor blades. He wrapped up the day heading home, kicking back with dinner, maybe even zoning out in front of the TV. Well, that's what could have happened if he hadn't been pulled straight into the helicopter blade. The impact was instant, because as we know, bodies don't stand a chance against steel blades rotating faster than the eye can follow. Crew members nearby were showered with debris, left frozen in shock at what they had just witnessed. It was a gruesome incident that left everyone unable to unsee it. This wasn't the kind of accident you could chalk up to a freak mishap or just part of the risk. It was catastrophic, brutal, and absolute. The sort of ending that doesn't just claim a life, but permanently scars everyone there to witness it. When people talk about stunts that went too far, this is the nightmare scenario that gets whispered about. Not because it's legendary, but because it's the kind of horror that makes you question why anyone would even try to risk danger this close to a spinning blade in the first place. If you made it this far, you've just heard some of the strangest and grisliest stunt deaths ever. That's all I've got for now, so maybe skip the real swords, stick to the props, and try to enjoy the rest of your day.